What's up, y'all? I'm Gabe, and this is my review for Hijack. Now, starting off, I can say that I really enjoyed the premise of this TV show. The story that it was trying to tell was fantastic, and the pacing, especially of this show, really made it intriguing and something that I've never seen before. I especially love the way that this series played out, where the 7-episode TV series is mimicking a 7-hour flight, because it actually feels realistic. On top of that, each episode has its own feel and sort of mini story arc, which helps keep the episode memorable. One problem that a lot of movies and TV shows suffer from is that when going about this hijacking theme is they don't make it realistic. A lot of the times they have one type of hijacker and he just hijacks the entire plane. And I'm like, okay, if there's 200 and some people on the plane, how are you able to hijack it? Because like 5 people could probably overpower you. One of the best things that they do to counter this and make it more realistic is with our main guy, Idris Elba. He has some initial contact with the ground, and that's able to lead to another subplot of the Prime Minister and their associates scrambling to try and figure out what's going on in the sky and how to stop it. It also really helps the pacing of this TV show when it continues to alternate from plane scenes to ground scenes. One flaw with that, though, is sometimes the ground scenes feel a bit less impactful compared to what's going on in the sky, and it sometimes distracts you from what's actually going on. But the way they pace it also helps us learn the motivations for the hijackers and why they're doing this, and helps us get invested more into Elba's character, especially when showing his relationship with his wife and kid. I also really enjoyed how the show started off and handled his relationship with his family. I think it was a great choice to make him divorced because it adds to the constant tension of the show. If they were in a perfectly healthy, happy marriage, then a lot of the times the wife would just believe him and immediately call the cops and be like, hey, there's a hijacking. But because they're divorced and there's a bit of tension going on between them two, she doesn't really necessarily believe him, or if this is just another ploy that he's doing to try and fix the relationship. A lot of the movie focuses, a lot of prior hijacking movies focus on the main character being some sort of doctor on board or police officer on board trying to stop the hijacking, or I've even seen some movies where they give the hijacking from the perspective of the hijackers. But a new take that this show does is they put it from the perspective of a negotiator in Elba. And at the beginning it seemed to me that this idea would be kind of stupid because the way that he revealed that he's a negotiator, and they make those final delivery lines like extremely cringy. But as the movie progresses, you forget about that, and the new perspective that it provides is extremely intriguing and compelling. Now, I also have to mention this, I feel like perfect casting for this movie, especially for the role of the negotiator in Idris Elba. His calming presence helps soothe the audience and the other passengers, and from some of his prior roles, I feel like he's learned a lot in the art of negotiation, which makes him look and feel like a guy that would actually try and negotiate with the hijackers themselves. The other hijackers, of course, do a great job as well as showing their own personalities throughout the hijack, even if it's for a few seconds. This helps shed light on their motivations and self-interests, and even with the casting on the plane, they all have their own personality, which makes the plane actually feel real and leads to many interesting encounters and interactions between the multiple different cultural from the different groups of people. Also, the flight control officer is an extremely underrated character in the show. The way that she finds different ways to communicate to the flight and the way that she's doing her best to help, yet the people around her don't believe her, feels extremely realistic. One pro that I can say of this TV show is it started off very strong and had me hooked from the beginning. I really enjoyed how the hijackers were able to take over the plane, especially with having some outside forces to help some of the other plane passengers' decisions to assist them in the hijacking. On top of that, the second to last episode had a killer reveal that I guarantee nobody would expect. This reveal, along with the culmination of all the tension, helped make the final episode extremely emotional and impactful. Now, one problem, though, with this is the way that they blackmailed some of the other family members on board to help them make those decisions. It just felt a little bit too much. I felt like almost 30 plus people in this plane were helping the hijackers, and I'm like, okay, how did they get access to all 30 of those members' families? Because that means they have to keep control of like 100 plus people, and they only had like a group of 6 people that we saw from the ground scenes. But I also really loved all the different ways that the show got out of those troubling situations. For example, in the 6th episode, when they circled the lettering on their shake to spread the word to everybody of what's about to happen. In episode 5, when Elba is able to sneak a call to the doctor on board to help him out. In episode 3, when everybody passes down the notes to the girls that found the shell casing in order for the bullet expert to tell if it's real or not, and for its future implications on the hijackers. These close calls really help drive the importance and realism of the hijacking and makes each episode feel unique. One big problem some TV shows have nowadays is that after watching it, you can't pinpoint certain events because the whole show meshes together and you forget certain events that even happened because they just weren't of that importance. But in this show, you know exactly what's happening, and because of the hijacking, it all feels extremely important. Now, there were some few issues that I had with this show, and some of that I can say can be that this show feels a bit forced. Like I mentioned before, when you're threatening blackmailing 30 people's families, that just seems a bit unrealistic. But I also didn't like this situation where the brother of the main guy got stabbed. It felt as if it wasn't handled the best, especially when they were also worried about the dude above them, their superiors, and what they might do to them if they don't comply. Choosing to let your brother die in this situation would be a no-brainer. But when he doesn't, it's only brought up a few more times, and then it seems like the hijacker just forgot about it. And by the end of the final episode, it's not even brought up again. Speaking of the final episode, I don't like the final confrontation between him and Elba. It just felt forced because the dude already knows that they failed the plans for his superior, so he already knows he's gonna get arrested. But instead of getting a few years of jail time, if he stops right now, he then decides to chase Elba. And on top of that, it would have been a much better ending if the plane just landed successfully and everyone got off, or if they really wanted to go that route, make Elba actually die. Because the way that he plants his phone and the wife calls him at the perfect time and the hijacker falls for it and then he misses all his shots and the SWAT team immediately comes 3 minutes later, it just felt all coincidental and forced because that would never happen in real life. I also didn't like how the cleaners felt so stupid after hearing some noises and not being able to find Elba's kid. And for some reason, after sitting and hiding, the kid just walks out when the doorbell gets rang and gets caught and could have easily died because of it. On top of that, the detective that goes there to try and figure out that they're clearly men holding the kid hostage, somehow in 10 minutes, he's able to set up an entire SWAT team to save him, which just makes no sense at all. But other than those few mistakes or forcing of issues, I thought this show was a really great show. Like I mentioned before, it really keeps you gripped and entertained the entire time you're watching it, and having those different episode like arcs makes the show much more memorable. If those 3 scenes or whatever that I pointed out weren't completely forced or felt forced at least, this show could have easily been much higher show. And this show is just another show that shows that Apple TV is here to stay. And if they keep producing bangers out like this, it's clearly gonna be the best streaming service out there. And that's my review for Hijack. I just want to say, if you're still here, thanks for watching. And if you guys like this video, hit that like and subscribe for more. Bye, guys.